The Horse Soldiers is a 1959 drama film set in Mississippi during the American Civil War, loosely based on Harold Sinclair's 1956 novel by the same name. It was directed by John Ford and starred John Wayne, William Holden and Constance. Towers.Althea Gibson, U.S. tennis champion, had a minor role and insisted that her dialogue be rewritten, as she found its dialect demeaning. John Mahin and Rackin produced the movie and wrote its screenplay. Background: the film was loosely based on Harold Sinclair's 1956 novel of the same name, which in turn was based on the historic 17-day Grierson's raid and Battle of Newton's Station in Mississippi during the Civil War. In April 1863, Colonel Benjamin Grierson led 1,700 Illinois and Iowa soldiers from LaGrange, Tennessee to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, through several hundred miles of enemy territory, destroying Confederate railroad and supply lines between Newton Station and Vicksburg, Mississippi. The mission was part of the Union Army's successful Vicksburg campaign to gain control over boat traffic on the Mississippi River, culminating in the Battle of Vicksburg. Grierson's destruction of Confederate-controlled rail links and supplies played an important role in disrupting Confederate General John C. Pemberton's strategies and troop deployments. Union General William Tecumseh Sherman reportedly described Grierson's daring mission as the most brilliant of the war. Plot summary: a Union cavalry brigade led by Colonel John Marlowe, a railroad construction engineer in civilian life, is sent on a raid behind Confederate lines to destroy a railroad and supply depot at Newton Station. Major Henry Kendall, a regimental surgeon who is torn between duty and the horror of war, is constantly at odds with Marlowe. While the unit rests at Greenbrier Plantation, Miss Hannah Hunter, the plantation's mistress, and her slave, Lukey, eavesdrop on a staff meeting as Marlowe discusses his battle strategy. To protect the secrecy of the mission, Marlowe is forced to take the two women with him. Initially hostile to her Yankee captor, Miss Hunter gradually warms to him. In addition to Kendall and Miss Hunter, Marlowe also must contend with Col. Phil Secord, who continually second-guesses Marlowe's orders and command decisions. Several battles ensue, including a firefight during which Lukey is killed, and a skirmish with boy cadets from a local military school. After destroying the crucial supply line, and with Confederate forces in pursuit, the brigade reaches a bridge that must be stormed in order to access the Union lines. Marlowe's men rig it with explosive charges, and Marlowe bids Hannah farewell. Kendall chooses to remain behind with some badly wounded men, knowing he will be captured with them, rather than leave them defenseless to the mercy of the Confederates. Marlowe, though wounded, lights the fuse and leads his troops across the bridge before it is destroyed, halting the Confederate advance. The mission accomplished, he and his brigade continue on toward Baton Rouge. Cast: John Wayne as Colonel John Marlowe, William Holden as Major Henry Hank Kendall, Constance Towers as Miss Hannah Hunter of Greenbrier, Althea Gibson as Lukey, Miss Hunter's fiercely loyal black maid, Judson Pratt as Sergeant Major Kirby, Ken Curtis as Corporal Wilkie, Willis Bushy as Col. Phil Secord, Bing Russell as Dunker, Yankee soldier amputee, O.Z. Whitehead as Otis Hoppy Hopkins, Hank Warden as Deacon Clump, Chuck Hayward as Union Captain, Denver Pyle as Jackie Joe, Strother Martin as Virgil, Basil Roysdale as the Reverend, Carlton Young as Col. Jonathan Miles, CSA, William Leslie as Marge, Richard Gray, William Henry as Confederate Lieutenant, Walter Reed as Union Officer, Anna Lee as Mrs. Burford, William Forrest as Jen, Steve Hulbert, Ron Hargithy as Bugler, Russell Simpson as Acting Sheriff Henry Goodbody, Hoot Gibson as Sergeant Brown, Jack Pennick as Sergeant Marge, Mitch Mitchell senior member of John Ford's stock company. Production. Exterior scenes were filmed in Natchitoches Parish, Louisiana, along the banks of Cane River Lake, and in and around Natchez, Mississippi, including at Washington. The film company built a bridge over the Cane River for the pivotal battle scene, and many locals were hired as extras. The project was plagued from the start by cost overruns, discord, and tragedy. Holden and Ford argued incessantly. Wayne was preoccupied with pre-production logistics for the Alamo. Luke's dialogue was originally written in a stereotypic Negro dialect that Althea Gibson, the former Wimbledon and U.S. national tennis champion who was cast in the role, found offensive. She informed Ford that she would not deliver her lines as written. Though Ford was notorious for his intolerance of actors' demands, he agreed to modify the script. During filming of the climactic battle scene, veteran stuntman Fred Kennedy suffered a broken neck while performing a horse fall and died. Ford was completely devastated, wrote biographer Joseph Mallam. Felt a deep responsibility for the lives of the men who served under him. The film was scripted to end with the triumphant arrival of Marlowe's forces in Baton Rouge, but Ford simply lost interest after Kennedy's death. He ended the film with Marlowe's farewell to Hannah Hunter before crossing and blowing up the bridge. The film was a commercial failure. Analysts said this was due largely to Wayne's and Holden's high salaries, and the complex participation of multiple production companies. The response of audiences and critics was lackluster. Historical accuracy. Though based loosely on Grierson's Raid the Horse Soldiers, is a fictional account that departs considerably from the actual events. The real-life protagonist, a music teacher named Benjamin Grierson, becomes railroad engineer John Marlowe in the film. Hannah Hunter, Marlowe's love interest, has no historical counterpart. Numerous other details were altered as well, to streamline and popularize the story for the non-history buffs who would make up a large part of the audience.